This is Edge of the Page podcast. I'm your host, Dave Michaels, and today we have Jason Ambrus.
What's up?
And you're a young stand-up comic in the city. Can I call you that? Or?
Sure. I mean, thanks for going that. I mean, I've always been like, I don't know what I would call it, a multidisciplinary. I never liked the term artist, but I'm always up to a bunch of things that are artistic. So comedy would be, I guess, the latest thing.
Right.
And it's kind of the result of podcasting.
Right.
Because I always had an interest in comedy, but my partner, Richard, from our podcast, like, he revealed to me a good year in that his whole plan, the whole time, was just to get me accustomed to, talking on the mic, so he could like manipulate me into getting on stage. Because it's been his secret plan this whole time. He's been obsessed with the idea of me doing stand-up.
So he's really like a genius. He's like,
oh yeah, he's Machiavellian. Like
he's like your Joker.
Very much so. Yes, but like a quiet Joker, quiet Joker. And then
a quiet Joker.
But he is in fact, he's evil in wonderful ways.
Evil in ways, yeah. And you're also a director.
Yes,
call it that. Yeah.
I mean that was my main gig.
Yeah.
Again, certain life events have kept me from that trade for a while now.
Yeah.
But I would say that I still feel comfortable calling myself a director because that's what I studied, that's what I'm into, and that's what I'm ready to do at the drop of a dime, basically.
Right. And that's how I met you.
Yeah.
Working on Punisher No Mercy.
Correct.
Now, you see, I kind of felt like I had to have you on the show now because the last episode I made like the worst mistake you could possibly make, and I mistook your film for Punisher Warzone.
Warzone. Okay, so here's the deal with that. So I'm listening to episode 2.
You probably hate me now.
No. Actually, it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing because so I guess you're talking to Jose Holder. Yes. Okay. Who I'm aware of. And that was a great episode, by the way.
Thank you.
I've actually liked everything you guys put out so far.
Thanks.
And when you said Warzone, 2 things went through my mind. First, amazing. Now I have like this open door to tease you and to bust your chops.
You have me forever now as this like person that just gets things wrong.
But the second thing that happened to me is that I started thinking about it, and I'm like, wait, no, that was a compliment because Warzone was an officially licensed adaptation of The Punisher.
Yeah.
And I felt like you made that mistake because in your mind it was No Mercy was that important of a film, or at least it belonged in that pantheon. And so for that reason, I was humbled by the mistake. Do you understand what I mean?
So I'm happy that actually you felt better about that because when people did start, and you weren't the first person to bring it up, people started texting, messaging me as soon as the episode came out of that mistake.
Really?
And I felt so bad about it. And the thing is, I'm used to doing prose and writing, and you could fix something in like 2 seconds.
Right. And
that was my first realization that podcasts are nothing like that.
Of course.
And when you make a mistake, it's there for the rest of the world.
Absolutely. And we make them all the time. I make them all the time. So welcome to podcasting.
Yeah.
And
thank you for having me on your show, Fire in the Hole podcast.
Of course, man.
Should mention that you're also a podcaster, and that's a great show as well.
Thank you. Yeah, that's been a big discovery. I mean, I started with my best friend. We called it Fire in the Hole.
Yeah.
And we just hit 100 episodes. Like the other day, like this week, we put up our 100th episode. Thank you. It's kind of surreal that there's 200 hours of us blabbing. I mean, luckily we've had really great guests on.
Yeah.
So there was no way we were doing 200 hours of just us talking.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's amazing, and it goes by so fast. And I think if you stick to this game, you're going to notice. You'll be surprised how fast this becomes part of your life, and you will not cancel it for anything.
Right.
Like the priority level is going to be really high for you.
Right.
You're like, yeah, your mom, can we maybe do it next week? Because I got a podcast.
Yeah. And it's just sort of, for me, it's sort of just, it's new, but it's something that I'm already like super excited to do.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm super excited to like ask people on and trying to get people on because I know some pretty awesome people.
You do.
know?
I was going to say, I think I told you when you came on our show, I'm like, because we keep trying to encourage people who have any sort of interest in this medium.
Yeah.
And now the audio medium is about to blow up.
That's what
I'm
everybody's
convinced.
saying. Like, I'm in a really good spot right now.
In a great spot right now, and it's always been a great spot, even when it wasn't the mainstream thing, because there's always been an underground of people who like kind of that lo-fi, back to basics, conversational stuff.
Yeah.
You've got a great platform. You are a lot of people have comic book podcasts.
Yeah.
But I don't know anybody as qualified as you.
Thank you.
Like.
Wow.
You're a scholar. You're a comic book scholar. You fully deserve that title.
Yeah.
And you know a shit ton. Can I swear on the show?
Yeah, I can say shit.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know a shit ton of people.
Yeah.
You know, and you're very respected and very loved by everybody in the community. So
thank you. Wow.
This was kind of like a no-brainer. I'm glad you did this.
That's awesome. That's great, man. Thanks. That's so flattering.
I mean it.
So, we're going to run straight to my hot topics. I have a lot of stuff to talk about
All right,
today.
let's do it.
It's crazy.
Can I just shout out to my lady, Vanessa, who's in the studio?
Yes. Hi, Vanessa. Hi, Vanessa.
Hello, hi, Vanessa.
See, I went and I turned from the camera. That's my rookie play. I turned from the camera from the microphone. And you probably didn't hear me say hello to her.
Yes.
But yeah, that's my first guest that's not on the show. You're welcome to come on the show, by the way.
No,
She's nodding.
She was very specific. She said, "There's no video, right?" I said, "There's no video. I'm not on the show, right?" I'm like, "No, we're good."
Okay.
But of course, you're welcome, baby, anytime. But she decided to ride along. But yeah, let's get into it, man.
Let's get into it. First off, I think we talk about this every show, but we're gonna talk about Infinity War because that's the thing that I'm most excited for this year for some reason.
Right.
Well, we know the reason.
Yes.
I love this stuff.
It's kind of everything.
It's kind of everything right now, and I don't know what I'm gonna do when I'm finally actually watching the movie. Like, I hope I don't just like flake out or something. But what are your thoughts, anticipations?
Okay. Well,
opinions.
I think what's very interesting about this whole thing, about the whole Marvel success story, is my gateway into comic books, or I should say my first comic book, really, apart from, everyone has a similar story, like my brother used to read them, the guy upstairs I used to hang out with had them, I found one on the ground and I started reading it, you know.
Everybody has that story.
Right? But the way I came into comic books, I mean, obviously, I read a lot of, I was born in a communist Europe, which a lot of people don't know this, but I was born in communist Europe, and a lot of this literature was completely forbidden. Like, there was no way you could find a copy of Batman or Superman or any of that shit. That was all considered decadent, capitalist propaganda, and was
you grew up in like V for Vendetta.
Well, I mean, luckily, you know, my family got out of there, you know, at the end of the '80s when the curtain fell. Yeah. But I do recall how censored everything was, you know, right down to like Monopoly, right? Like you couldn't play Monopoly because it was a tool of the capitalist devil, right? It taught you how to buy property and own stuff and things like that. So my very first contact with comic books, I'd say I was maybe 3.5, 4 years old. Yeah. And my mother she had a bunch of immigrant friends in Europe. Yeah. From Madagascar, of all places, where I couldn't tell you where that was on the map at the time. I was just like, black guys, I like with straight hair. I don't understand. So there were these really cool student dudes that my mom knew that were like a bunch of university guys, and they were super cool. And I befriended one of them, Theo, who I remember his name still. Yeah. And he used to make trips back to Madagascar occasionally. Yeah. And he'd come back with French comics. Yeah. So, because they have a French system there, right? Right. So he'd come back with Spirou. He'd come back with some German stuff too. Felix the Cat. Right. And he brought me a hardcover book, which I never forgot, which I just found a reissue of lately, of Rahan, right? Le Fils des Âges Farouches, the son of the Stone Age.
Okay.
And it's one of the best illustrated comics still this day that I've ever read about a blonde caveman, basically.
Okay.
A caveman with blonde hair. They call him Fire Hair.
Okay.
And he's like a sleuth slash caveman, like detective slash adventurer.
Okay.
And at the end of every adventure,
And it was like comedic? Or?
no, it's serious. It's drawn. It's sometimes there's some brutal, like harsh nature, like
Okay.
nature is metal type stuff.
Okay.
With people dying. And at the end of every adventure, he has a knife made from ivory, which is like nobody has an ivory knife. Right?
Okay.
And at the end of every adventure, he puts it on the stone and he spins it, and whichever way it points, he continues his adventures in that direction. Right. Okay. So I'll show you a copy of it.
Yeah. I've never heard of
I want to adapt Rehan one day if I ever get my hands on the options, because it's genius. So that was my gateway in, and then many years later here in North America, I remember walking into a super dingy comic book store that wasn't even comic book store completely. It sold like pots and pans and a bunch of like nonsense,
random things,
and for no reason whatsoever, in the corner was a bunch of Marvel comics translated to French,
right?
Which was a huge deal because you couldn't find them. They were very hard to find at first.
Yeah.
And my first comic book was an Iron Man comic book, Armor Wars, I think it was.
Right.
It's that famous cover where he's in the classic armor, flying up and against a white background, and the other armors are kind of flying with him.
Okay.
It's very iconic. And I swear this is connected to Infinity War.
Yeah.
So I remember reading Iron Man, and I came in just at the point in the 80s where Tony Stark had a drinking problem.
Right.
And he couldn't
That was some of the best Iron Man comics.
It was amazing. He couldn't put his armor on.
Yeah.
Rhodey had to put on the armor and also like not tell anyone in the Avengers. The Avengers would be like, hey, remember that time, Tone? And he'd be like, yeah.
But it also, I always found it really funny at that time that he would talk in jive.
Yeah, it's true.
And and all the other heroes were like, what's wrong with Iron Man?
Tony's acting weird.
They didn't realize that it was a black guy in the armor.
Exactly.
When clearly you would have, heard that it was a black guy in the armor, and they're just like, what's wrong with him?
What's going on with him? But back then, I guess there was no internet.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe they just, I don't know, they didn't realize there was a totally different person.
Right. So I come into Iron Man in this like kind of golden period where he it's really raw and dark. I mean, like, I'm a young guy, and at this point, Tony's lost Stark International, which was right, and Stain takes over his shit.
Right.
He's just a mess. He's a hot mess. Rhodey can barely keep it together.
Yeah.
And then later, he even progresses into the Silver Centurion phase a little bit later on, and then gets his ass handed to him.
Yeah.
Proper. And then he gets shot and loses his legs. And then all these adventures, and then finally, at one point, I found out Iron Man actually had started in like the 60s, right? And I'd seen drawings, but I'd never and then I went back and realized he had the worst origin story ever. I mean, Iron Man was basically like World War II, post-World War II, yellow fear, like Chinese fear propaganda. Yeah. And so
that's why when people complain about how they changed the Mandarin in the third movie, and, my argument sort of, or just an explanation for it was they couldn't do Mandarin the way he was in the comic books originally.
Especially
anyway.
This being the first Iron Man they specifically targeted at the Chinese market.
Exactly.
There was no way.
So there was no way they could have done Mandarin the way we know the character.
Of course.
Of course they could have changed it. They could have did something different.
Made him Taiwanese.
They could have did something different, but
just to be clear, I didn't coin the term yellow fear. That's a thing.
Yes, definitely.
I did not. I never referred to Asians as yellow people.
No, yes, exactly.
But I guess my quick point here, what I want to make is like the Iron Man origins, which were not spectacular or ever really standardized and revised a bunch of times, Infinity War was a pure cash grab event in the 90s because I had the comics.
Completely.
It was your classic, like, it's what they did in wrestling every once in a while. When it got too confusing, they'd create stables and everybody would fight everybody.
I would never I never was a big fan of the cosmic stuff growing up. I think I had one actually Infinity War issue, just the one that had all the characters fighting on the cover.
Of course. That
Because
folded
as
out.
a kid, you see that, it folded out, and you see that, and you see Wolverine fighting the Hulk, and of course, if you're a kid, you're going to buy that issue.
Yeah, it was like it was a glass of sugar.
Yeah.
Right. It was absolutely amazing. But actually, the most interesting parts of Infinity War, as I recall them, because I haven't read them in a while, was a lot of the post-Infinity War stuff.
Yeah.
Where Thanos has an opportunity to kind of reflect on everything that's happened.
Yeah.
And then Adam Warlock has an opportunity to sort of like come to grips with the meaning of it all, and all these ancillary characters, Moondragon, all these people are like, we explore the Soul Stone myth behind it. But the event itself was like, everybody jump on Thanos, and then Thanos, swats his hand.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So am I excited? But however, so here are all these sort of relatively not iconic comic book stories, but in translating them into film, Marvel, every time they release them, they're landing with the gravity of like Dark Knight Returns.
Yeah.
Even though these are characters that were never that big and never that beloved.
That's what shocks me about it, is that they literally able to take their characters that nobody made a big deal of.
Thor?
And basically because for the longest time, they used a lot of bigger characters to create their production company and gain the money and the notoriety to put together Marvel Studios.
Right.
So by the time Marvel Studios came along, they had to figure out what to do with Iron Man and Thor and Captain America, characters we never thought we'd see
ever
in a movie.
Maybe Iron Man. Maybe
Iron Man.
The Thor
starring Tom Cruise.
Starring Tom Cruise. Totally. With a shitty like goatee.
Or Kurt Russell, or
oh my God.
Somebody like that.
Russell would have pulled it off, but it would have been Tom Cruise and it would have been terrible. Or Nicolas Cage.
Or somebody like that. It would have been just, if they did it.
Freddie Prinze Jr. as Tony Stark.
Just something like that. It would have been like teenage Tony Stark in high school.
Oh yeah. It would have been on YTV.
Yeah.
And it would have had a name like, something like Iron Will or something like that. Some horrible pun.
It would have been like the Nick Fury, David Hasselhoff, Nick Fury.
Legendary.
Which I was ready for that.
Yeah.
Like when it came out, I was like, okay, this is finally Marvel movie on TV. This is it.
Yeah.
And it has the Fenris twins. And
oh yeah, that's right.
And the whole deal. And it was just it came and it went.
Honestly though, like yes, I'm as excited as you are about Infinity War. But mostly because the point I wanted to make was it's because of how the film universe was built. And it's a culmination of what's been happening in the films. If this had been purely based on the comic book, I'd have been like, yawn. It would have been kind of like a Transformers situation, like big, dumb, and loud, and I don't care. But because they've so meticulously built this whole situation.
It does sort of look like there's three or four different stories going on with 3 or 4 different groups of characters.
All 97 superheroes.
And they're all sort of like, there was like Tony Stark with Doctor Strange and Spider-Man, and then it looks like we're going to have the Wakandans with Captain America and Buffy. Buffy? Did I just say Buffy? You
said Buffy.
That was a bigger mistake.
Buffy's in the movie, isn't it? But well, then again, if that mistake gets Sarah Michelle Gellar on your show, you've won again.
Let's hope that happens.
So just to be clear, when Buffy is not in the Infinity War, there seems to be some parallel things that they're going to do. Definitely.
Yeah, for sure. And one of the things that people is, and I've seen like memes about it now, is the Hawkeye situation, where we do not see him whatsoever.
So the idea is that maybe he's not in it, or he bites the dust, or
well, apparently he is in the movie. We're not sure what kind of role he's going to have, or if he's going to be the one that's going to.
Definitely,
because everybody seems to think that somebody's going to bite the dust.
Well, I think that's
even though there's another movie coming.
Sure, but I think at the culmination of this, it makes business sense to kill off some of the.
And he was retired. And then he came out of retirement and got arrested, so we don't know what's going to happen.
Right. And I don't think, I mean, you would know better, but I don't think that there's like a crazy public outcry for more Hawkeye.
No, exactly.
They're happy he's there.
I've always loved the character.
Have you?
I've always been a Hawkeye fan,
really?
Way back in the day when he had the Sky Cycle, and he was like with Mockingbird. And
you remember the Great Lake Avengers?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I remember the West Coast ones for sure.
Right. So the Great Lake
one.
Great Lake Avengers is this little known, little remembered John Byrne.
They had Squirrel Girl, right?
No, they had a bunch of guys like E-list, nobody's ever heard of them kind of guys.
Wow.
There was a pterodactyl dude. There was Big Bertha, who was like this girl who
could like a circus.
She could become like a massive, super blobby. It was a blob type of thing.
I'm vaguely familiar with
Mr. Immortal. Yeah, so this was literally Hawkeye being such an asshole because he constantly clashed with the West Coast Avengers, right? With Simon.
Well, him and Hawkeye, him and Captain America always
they butted heads, right? And because he was always at odds with them. So this is literally Hawkeye going like, I'm going to have my own Avengers, but with hookers and low. That was him walking away, and then he finds this ridiculous bunch of like discount superheroes.
Right.
But John Byrne did it, so it was amazing.
Yeah,
right?
Of course. Anything he did, especially at that time.
Right.
Everybody just jumped on board. His Superman stuff was just...
John Byrne is
my favorite
stuff. I'm not typically the kind of person to over-decorate with comic book stuff, but I would... If someone was like, I could plaster your whole place in John Byrne art, I'd be like, let's do it.
It just always felt wholesome to me. I can't explain how
He's
it
the
makes
first
me feel.
Artist that I saw that drew different people.
Yeah, that's true.
There were short people, tall people, fat people, skinny people.
That's true.
There was a bit of a base to his faces, but you felt like I think he's the first artist where I actually saw a difference between Bruce Wayne and Clark Kent. Like
his Clark Kent looked like Christopher Reeve,
right? But there was like finally,
it's true.
You could like when they stood in the same panel, you're like, okay, it's not this. This is not just the same dude.
Yeah.
He gave, I think, Superman more of a cleft chin, or was it more Bruce Wayne? One of them had more of like a Kirk Douglas kind of look, and the other one had more of like a square jaw, all American.
It was great, and his X-Men stuff was just blew me away too.
Everything he's ever touched.
His Wolverine was short and stocky and perfect,
and hairy and nasty, and probably my favorite thing he's ever done, which again nobody read, but I love the shit out of, was the first 25 issues in the 90s reboot of Namor the Submariner.
Yes.
Where he came in and the first thing he did is he tore off Namor's wings. From his egg. And had this happened now, there would have been a 4-alarm riot. And even back then, the bullpen,
I'm sure people in the comic book shops and stuff were really pissed off.
Crazy mad.
And I've always found the ankle wings really stupid looking.
They were odd, but it was just always there. And then the fact that like in the first issues, like gone.
Yeah. That was the one where he became sort of like a corporate writer, right?
Yes, but the most important thing that happened in that run, because then it got into weird Iron Fist Wolverine type stuff. Still super well drawn, but like the storyline was meh. The most important thing he did is he pulled the equivalent of the Rogue One explanation of the Death Star. Like how it was easy to destroy the Death Star. How could they leave such a flaw? No, it was built in. Don't you see? Right. So he did the equivalent of that, I feel, in that show or in that run, where because Namor returns. He starts a corporation, and he's concerned with environmental issues because in the 90s that was a big topic, right? But just as he's starting to save the world, and clean up the planet, people are like, wait, hang on a second there, Your Highness. Mm-hmm. What about the 10 times you rolled in here and destroyed and conquered everything with your troops? What the fuck was that? Excuse me? What the bleep was that all about? And then he gets sued, and he has to stand trial for having, evil supervillain style invaded New York like 10 times. Which they addressed. I didn't think they would address it. And then finally a scientist comes forward and explains why there are two Namors. Why there's a Imperious Rex, a despot.
Or black vest Namor and the naked Namor.
Exactly. There's like this like King of the Seas, Savior, Marvel, Avengers, Invaders dude.
Yeah.
And then there's this like maniacal despot. And he explains that because of the fact that he's half Atlantean, he has a chemical imbalance in his brain. Right. And he must spend approximately equal times in both environments. Otherwise, he goes Dr. Do on everybody.
Right.
And that blew my mind as a teenager. I was like, that explains everything.
It explains everything,
And no longer, he just reconciled the biggest problem that character ever had, was how to explain that one moment he's, yelling orders off the top of a building with a trident in his hand.
Yeah.
And in the other, he's one of us, like he's a hero.
I would love to see him possibly maybe in the Black Panther sequel, because those two...
Right.
More recently in the comic books have had more of a...
Run-ins? Okay.
Run-ins. And I would definitely like to see another world leader, villain, or hero, or anti-hero go up against him.
Right.
I think that was one
Atlantis versus Wakanda.
And I think that could work.
Yeah.
Either him or Doom.
I mean, Doom, to me, sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, it's kind of possible.
But yeah, there's a lot of good stuff they can do.
Yeah, exactly. And so another thing, this actually, I rushed this into my notes just last night, is this Matt Damon rumor. I don't know if you heard about Matt Damon actually passing on Spider-Man Homecoming 2.
Okay. Is there any indication as to why?
I think he had something else he would rather do, or something of that nature. Okay. We're not sure.
Was he supposed to play the villain in this one? Or?
I don't know, but I found it pretty funny because he had that cameo in Ragnarok.
So with Ragnarok, yeah. And
I'm thinking, maybe it's like Mysterio, and he's an actor that Loki kidnapped from Earth, or of course that's my geeky trying to rationalize.
You should write that immediately. That sounds amazing.
Completely could. And especially with their humor-oriented stuff, I think that would be really funny.
I have no idea why, but if I were Matt Damon,
there's no indication who he was going to play.
There's no indication. If I were him, anybody that was sort of established as an actor pre-Marvel explosion, I think everyone's kind of piling on, trying to get any piece of the Marvel.
That's it.
Glitter, and maybe he's just careful because he doesn't want it to override his body of work. He doesn't want to become another actor that's jumped on the.
Well, yeah, I mean, he also did The Great Wall, so
right.
He's made some questionable.
Oh, of course,
movies,
right?
But
people won't remember him for that role.
No, not at all.
They might mock him for it.
I think he would have been a cool Doc Ock. I don't know if that's what they were going for. I know they sort of hinted Sinister Six. So there's so many characters yet that they haven't done yet, and it seems to be that they're thinking of doing new ones. I don't know, but I would love to see Doc Ock again in a movie.
Of course, although Alfred Molina, those are big shoes to fill.
It is. I don't. He looked like the character.
He's an icon.
I don't really know how they could maybe. And the arms were phenomenal.
Yeah, they pulled it off. Definitely.
They pulled it off.
No pun intended.
Yeah. I would really like to see Kraven.
Oh,
I don't know if he could play him, but.
I'd like to see, for Kraven, I'd like to see like a. What's his name? The guy that played Sabretooth. His name is...
Oh, yeah.
You know who we're talking
Ray
about.
Donovan.
Ray Donovan?
Ray Donovan is the show that he's on.
Oh, no, I meant...
Liev Schreiber?
Liev Schreiber, that's it. Like, if not him, then someone like him. A guy that has
somebody like that would be good.
Intelligence in his eyes and has range, but also physically, like...
It definitely has to be somebody intimidating, because I found that the coolest part of that first movie was the car conversation. I think I mentioned this in a previous episode. The car, when he's dropping off Peter and his daughter to the prom.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And Michael Keaton is giving him like the talk, but it's a super villain talk, and you can see the kid is just like...
It's a great scene.
He's so scared, and that was, for me, that was the best scene in the movie, so I would like to see somebody that really could be a threat to...
Yeah, Tom Hardy, although it's too late now.
No,
Tom Hardy would have been perfect. It has to be someone that can physically impress.
Like that.
Because then you need to believe this guy, when he's not pestering Spider-Man, is consistently testing himself against any dangerous animal he can find. And, But Craven, oh yeah, there's a bunch of guys there.
Yeah. I forgot to put this in my notes, but one of the things that I was thinking of really talking about was the casting for the villain in the Wonder Woman movie. Have you heard about this?
No. I mean, is this about the next one?
It's the next one.
Okay.
It's Kristen Wiig.
Okay.
The comedian.
We've now entered fully into, a
scary situation. But...
well, the casting for the villain in the first movie really, really confused the hell out of me, too.
Yeah.
I mean, I love that dude. I love that actor.
He was great in Fargo.
But I had just seen the Harry Potter films. And then... Okay. And then he's like that professor in my mind. Like, there's nothing Aries about him.
Yeah. He was a really villain in the Fargo series.
Right.
That was what I had just seen him in right before Wonder Woman. And that whole villain situation in that movie was really kind of off the wall.
Very strange. Very strange decisions. But I think everyone was just so happy to see a DC movie that didn't poop the bed.
No, for sure. I mean,
they overlooked any sort of...
no, it felt like more like a Marvel movie to me.
And it produced one of the best memes, superhero memes that I've seen. It's one of my favorites, where it's like Wonder Woman close up when she finds the pilot, Chris Pine's character, right? And he's like, a man, and then he goes, "Did you just assume my gender?"
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I love that meme so much. No, there's some good things going on.
I really enjoyed that. I'm not sure what the situation would be with Kristen Wiig. I when they hire a really funny person in that role, in villain roles, I'm always scared we're gonna get like
Goofy
Jim Carrey and Riddler as the Riddler,
right.
Or some people have said though that Danny DeVito wasn't too bad,
right?
And
no, it can work out. It all depends on who's directing. Who's directing.
That's right.
One of the biggest problems I've seen with the DC movies is just it's either tone deaf, or they just cannot agree. They can't. There's no confidence. It just seems like it's all
over the place.
I see it in stand-up comedy. I see sometimes people go up who are very strong, good communicators, are funny as hell.
Yeah.
But they can't really. They haven't settled yet on where their niche is.
Yeah.
So they're just doing this kind of potpourri, emphasis on the pourri. Of like styles, and then you're like, okay, these are all great individually, but as a whole, I feel like I just ate a bunch of Chinese food and then candy and then a hot dog, and I'm sick now.
Justice League felt like, for sure.
Exactly.
It felt like there was too many people involved, and I know there was maybe now we're hearing that there is was some stressful stuff going on.
Right.
With Zack Snyder, obviously,
that's right.
And then they brought in Whedon, and then it was all over the place. And then
now there's a new head of creative.
Henry Cavill had a mustache.
Oh my god, yeah!
It was just it was a lot of stuff was just and there was stuff about that movie that I enjoyed, but there was just it's all over the place.
Of course,
it's not a consistent feel like I get with
it's
like
very strange.
Or Ragnarok or It just felt really all over the place.
Anyway, I've worked with the Warner Brothers gaming division.
Right.
I've done some work for them in the past, and I had a lot of chance to talk to the people that work within the WB universe, and their licenses are incredibly cherished, right? Like their Batman obviously is their sacred cow.
Yeah.
But they're sitting on just so much power in terms of licenses,
right?
From Bugs Bunny to everything else. Yeah. So
I think they even have Harry Potter, right?
They think they're sitting on Harry Potter as well. Yeah.
Wow.
So for them to sit on this probably the most valuable catalog since the Beatles catalog, if not more valuable. Yeah. To see this kind of aimlessness and this kind of like tripping over their own feet is disheartening a little bit, but I'm confident that I dream of a second phase, a DC second phase.
Well, I mean, I found the after credits scene in the Justice League movie that made me literally in the theater put my arms up. Like, why wasn't that my movie?
Right. Which after credits
when
scene?
Lex Luthor and Deathstroke meet, and he says we could have a league of our own, and which was weird at the same time.
It made no sense.
And I was sort of like thinking, well, he could have said, why can't we have a legion, or something. They could have done so much more with that scene, but
dude, the
potential there was
out of control.
Made me very excited.
This is like, and I'm sorry, I don't want to open this. This is you lead the way here, but what you said just reminded me of the entire Iron Fist Netflix experience,
right?
Which was my Vietnam. Like I'm not even gonna mince words, but there was this one episode where they have this black and white footage of an older Iron Fist, and they show it for like 6 seconds on a wall panel.
Yes,
they're like, oh yes, you're descendant from one of these guys, and then they show this like freehand footage, this like freestyle footage of this guy like kicking ass with both fists lit up in like World War II version of Iron Fist.
Right.
And I'm like, that whole thing, that 6 seconds I just watched was better than the entire show.
No, that was the highlight.
That was Iron Fist. Yeah. And it lasted 6 seconds.
Yeah. And
now my wound is deeper.
Yeah. I do have hope that what we saw him in the Defenders after Daredevil passed, or they think he did.
Right.
And you see him on the rooftop, and he's like looking like a vigilante. And you know, I'm thinking maybe the next season we might see a whole different type of show. You know, and I'm hoping. You know, I have a lot of hope.
Sure. But I can't this came up on the show with Jose, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
There is, while I'm very critical and I make a lot of jokes. Like you guys, I'm also incredibly happy that any of this is happening in the first place.
For sure.
But I guess that's why I'm even harsher critic, because I'm like, you're gonna bring this out. Like, come on, you got to do right by it.
No, but obviously, when we're fans of this stuff, we want to see it done right.
Right.
You know, and you know, for me, for the longest time, we hadn't seen that. Mm-hmm. We got the Italian Red Skull Captain America movie.
I love that movie.
You love that movie?
I love it because it's so bad.
Okay, right. It's so bad it's good.
It's the Room level. Yeah. It's the Room of the superhero films.
Yeah. And the Roger Corman Fantastic Four, I don't know if you ever had a chance to see that.
Just a few seconds of it.
I was able to get a bootleg off of somebody somewhere at one point, and got a chance to see that, and it's
bizarre.
It was really bizarre, but yet it still had the best Doctor Doom
and it was still
that we've ever seen.
Yeah. Isn't that amazing?
It was literally on point with the comic book.
But that's how I feel about Punisher. I still feel like, as far as major films, the Dolph Lundgren version to me is still my favorite.
Do you know who agrees with you? And I was really shocked when I talked to him, Jay Baruchel.
Really?
When I asked him about you know, because he had come into the old shop that I worked for once and bought anything Punisher, you know, so I knew he was a fan. And so we started talking about Punisher, and he was like, oh, Lundgren is my Punisher.
Oh, yeah. 100% agree.
You know, and maybe I have to go back and watch it.
You have to go back and watch it, but you have to take a few things into consideration. And this is not me now preparing you to overlook mistakes, because it's very much a 90s film.
Right.
It's very much a low-budget film.
Yeah.
But in its lack of sophistication and let's say financing, it also avoided the pitfalls of big-budget productions, which is like, we have to do something new. Yeah. We have to do something different.
Yeah.
We have to surprise. We have to... What if Punisher was gay? Like, you know, all these conversations...
Yeah.
They didn't have that luxury because they were so happy to just make this film.
Yeah, right.
And there wasn't that much of money sort of risked on it.
Yeah.
And Dolph Lundgren is amazing. He just said yes because he loves to do cheesy, low-budget action films.
Right.
That's his cup of tea. It is more faithful to the comic book than anything I've ever seen.
And I guess sort of like maybe at even a higher level, Blade was like that too.
Blade was to me the genesis of superhero films. I'll always point to it as when they say humanity began in Africa. Right?
It started with Blade.
Marvel movies started with Blade.
Yeah.
It started with Wesley Snipes, and I'll stand by that any day.
For sure.
He not only, but he took a title that wasn't great, and he turned it into a blueprint.
I think most people knew from the character from the '90s Spider-Man cartoon.
Yeah.
That
I mean,
was
he was
most people's introduction to Blade.
He was barely like he was such a like non-entity really. You know, you could not carry anything by himself.
Yeah,
and he turned it into an absolute like blockbuster machine.
Crazy.
But what the Dolph Lundgren Punisher got better than all of them is it just understood it. I mean, I could go on and on about this. I'm not going to.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is like watch it again and let's talk about it sometime because.
Right.
You know, shout out to Jay. I mean, listen, I did a Punisher fan film with Sean Baychu, Amber Goldfarb, all these people.
It's great. Everybody was, and it's amazing. And you should never get the title wrong.
Or if you get it wrong, have a podcast. So
yes, exactly.
Immediately, then guilt you to having me on.
Exactly.
You got it. But you know. That's a 3-day conversation. I could never stop talking about that stuff. But to me, the fact that two things happened. First, that Jerry Conway, you know, gave us a shout out. To me, that sealed. It closed the box. It even shut down my objections or criticisms of my own work. Right.
Right.
I was like, Jerry Conway liked it. We're done here.
Yeah, exactly.
John Bertholm saw it watched it while preparing for his role, and mentioned it to Amber because he saw her in a convention.
Wow!
And he recognized her, and he's like, "Where do I know you from?"
Right.
And she's like, "I don't know." And then she starts listing her movies, and he's like, "No, you were in No Mercy." And she's like, "You know what No Mercy is?" He's like, "Yeah. I'm in the I'm preparing for the role right now. I'm watching anything that has Punisher on it."
He's a really nice guy. I got a chance to meet him really quick. And
he seems like just a salted. And what an interesting story this guy has.
Yeah.
His whole like Russian drama education. Okay. Like nobody knows this, but the guy he learned how to act in Russia. Yeah,
for real.
There's the Nerdist podcast. I think it's Nerdist. It has a great interview with him. If you ever, it's not what you expect. He's a surprise. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
And great Punisher, by the way. And when I say Dolph Lundgren is the best. Not to take anything away from John Bernthal, I think he did a stellar job.
I mean, it's definitely something like I sat and watched with my mom, and we both just looked at each other like, this is phenomenal stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like, my mom was like watching it and saying, this is like better than that. Like, I can't believe it's from a comic book,
right?
You know, and I'm like,
she saw it as a show.
She saw it as a show.
Yeah,
she saw it just like any other like crime show you'd see on. You know, HBO or one of these, you know, stations where they would show something with that graphic.
Right, of course.
Yeah. You know, but and I had a chance to actually tell him how much I appreciated that cemetery scene in Daredevil.
Oh, yeah.
Where he was talking about his kids. Mm-hmm. That literally...
A very long scene.
Made me a little emotional watching it, you know, and it's very rare that something like that...
I love the rooftop... The rooftop
too
conversation that was like to me lifted off the page.
They wrote Punisher phenomenal, and specifically the Daredevil show. I loved it. Jumping into comic books a little bit. Of course, you know that Marvel is doing a whole reboot of their series.
New
5280. Not too much. I think they're keeping their continuity intact, but. They are bringing back, finally, this broke this week, Fantastic Four.
Yeah, I saw the announcement.
Which they were, you know, not making Fantastic Four comics. Mm-hmm. They came out with Marvel 2-in-1, which had Thing and Human Torch.
Right.
Kind of to ease the audience back into the Fantastic Four. But, I mean, fans have been
clamoring.
Really missing Fantastic Four because, I mean, the Hickman run that had just finished before they canceled the series was regarded as some of the best Fantastic Four stuff that's come along.
Yeah, that's probably one of the toughest properties to.
Yeah.
I like if someone says tomorrow, like, do a Fantastic Four movie and here's the money. I'd like to think that I would fare better than Josh Trank. And whoever else helmed those two other ones.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure even after 30 years, plus years of comic book reading, that I know exactly how to, like, where they belong exactly.
Yeah, I mean, it would definitely, it would all make sense that they sort of maybe introduced them in Avengers 4 and the Phase 4. And, you know, marketing-wise, that all seems like it works.
Right.
You know, and yeah, I don't, you know, I mean, I think if anybody could do it right, Marvel.
I have no doubt. I mean, if they were able to make Guardians of the Galaxy, which was the strangest property to go after, because I read the original Guardians of the Galaxy.
I had not read one. You know,
I read the original, not the Rocket Raccoon
the
ones.
Stuff with
what's his name, Marty 27, Starhawk. Vance Astro, all that stuff.
They all showed up in the second one.
Yeah, exactly. But to me, that was so weird because, I mean, it was a nice sort of ode to them, but
they didn't look like the characters.
No, but also they were terrible characters. It was pure 90s sort of, you know, mishmash comic book. The only sweet part about it that I really enjoyed about it was Vance Astro's story. I thought was really interesting. Yeah,
he was like Captain America of the future.
Right. But he had left Earth, I think, sometime in our era as an astronaut, and then floated in space, Ripley style, for 30 centuries. I don't know, whatever.
That's awesome.
And then woken up, and then he had the adamantium suit that he was trapped inside of.
Right.
And then when he was freed from that and found Cap's shield, like, it was really interesting.
Cool.
From that standpoint. But yeah.
Cool. So
sorry, Fantastic Four.
Fantastic Four, I'm looking forward to it with Dan Slott writing. He just finished the huge Amazing Spider-Man run.
Yeah, what'd you think of it?
The Amazing Spider-Man run was, I mean, really touch and go. I mean, he did some great stuff. I loved Spider Island, where everybody got spider powers, and you know, some people didn't like the Superior Spider-Man,
right?
Where Doc Ock took over Spider-Man's body for a while. It was a long one. I thought it was great. Yeah, I really enjoyed, you know, seeing, and that changed Spider-Man forever, making him basically the new Tony Stark,
right?
And the head of a industry and tech company.
Let's face it. At this point, anyone that can write an original Spider-Man story or can breathe any life into that title is a bit of a genius, because I mean it's been a very heavily exploited.
And I'll tell you, we at the old store had one of the Spider-Man exclusive covers for one of their number ones that they redo number one all the time, but we had our own
your own version of it?
Our own version of the cover, drawn by Neil Adams.
What?
And the bosses went to New York, and they ran up to Stan Lee's studio and got some signatures from him. And then they went to Dan Slott's house. And apparently his house is absolutely covered with, like, Spider-Man, like, research.
Wow.
He
Talk
literally,
about taking
like,
your work home with
when
you
go home, and you know when you go into those cop movies where they have, like, the the information boards
where
with all the
murderer has struck before,
and all these, like, threads that are like connecting.
Okay, he's got like
he's apparently, like, he's got blackboards.
He's a mad genius.
He's a mad genius apparently, and he's apparently a huge historian.
You have to be at this point.
Well, he would have to be, you know, and he was able to come up with all the old storylines with, like, the clones and make sense of all that, and you know, the Jackal and all these characters that most people probably don't even know who they are. But he wrote Spider-Man like it was a life. It was a life for him. For like,
well, you got to think, for a comic book writer, like, that's a dream come true, right?
It would be for me. Yeah.
So I would definitely, like, dig deep within me.
Yeah.
Right? No, like, this is my one chance, and then I put on Eminem's.
Yeah.
Lose yourself.
Mom spaghetti.
Mom spaghetti. Start doing push-ups and be like, this has got to, I'm going to write the best, if it kills me, I'm going to write the best Spider-Man I can ever write.
Yeah. I mean, it's.
Yeah, kudos to him.
So, I mean, I hope he's that meticulous with Fantastic Four, and we're going to get some great stories out of that.
I'm personally, if you're wondering if this was your question at any point, I'm all for it.
Yeah.
I think they've solved the problem of comic books with this idea of kind of runs, and breaking away from the very heavy, impossible constraints of maintaining a universal continuity, and just being able to hand it to creators that are like, okay, give us like a 20-issue run. Yeah. You know, and then if it blows up, we'll make it 100 issues. Yeah. You know, and this will be the Spider-Man will have 19 arms and face through walls as long as people care that he, you know, about the story. Yeah, yeah. And then if that's not the flavor anymore, then you hand it off to another one, and it becomes a father-son psychology thing. Yeah, and I mean, into that for a while.
I think that they do have a really good time with that, and I mean, I have been reading stuff all the way through because it's sort of my job to do that. Right. And I mean, I was reading the Sam Wilson Captain America stuff, which I loved.
It was great.
You know, I read the Coates Black Panther stuff, which was touch and go. But I mean, you're right.
Just saw Black Panther actually.
Yeah. What's your
Oh, I don't know if you want to go there, man. I heard you and Jose talking about it.
Right.
So I could give you a very brief I could give you a short version. Right. I certainly loved it too. Yeah. In terms of like, it was a good time. Yeah. I had problems with it, but it was the problems I anticipated having.
Plot holes. I mean, I have to admit, even I admit that there was.
But I mean, it wasn't even that. I just It felt like what it would have been like if Hillary Clinton had been elected. And what I mean by that is there was such a thrust and a hype behind that this movie made.
Well, you went after, right? After all the hype.
Exactly, which I like to do, by the way. When there's too much hype around movie, I literally get like nervous. Like I can't go see the movie. I'll get too anxious being in the room. If there's too many people without shirts on and like plastic swords, like
you couldn't. Yeah.
Lord of the Rings was like that. I had to wait till some of the craze blew over, and then I'm like, all right, now I'm going to go see these I'm going to go see these movies. I have a potty mouth. I'm sorry. Yeah. So Black Panther, I was like, okay, everyone's lost their minds over this. I'll go see it. And we couldn't find a non-3D version of it because I just wanted to see the film. I didn't want to see special effects. Right. So that was definitely not a brief review, but here is the brief review, and I would say this: there's nothing wrong with it, right? But I don't think that it's as great as people think it is. I think I'm very happy that this movie's out there. Yeah, I think Chadwick Boseman is a great actor. No. I think the cast was on point. Yeah. The look of it was on point. I'm not sure I loved the political sort of side to it, because I feel like that's a fad now, and I know Black Panther very well as a character, so I resent a little bit him being sort of touted as like a PC culture kind of thing, kind of emblem right now, when he's way more deep than he's not just a black superhero, right?
Oh, definitely.
He's like, forget the fact that he's African and black. Like there is a complexity to T'Challa and to his whole realm and everything. But this had to be the introduction, right? This had to be the first one. Right. So anything that I didn't like, they'll easily have time to. This was a test. Yeah. And it blew up. It was a huge success. So that's good news. That means that we're going to get more.
I definitely think that the next one will be a little different than what people are expecting.
Right. I want some Winter Soldier. Right. That's become the Wrath of Khan by the way of the Marvel Universe.
That's what's great about the Marvel movies is that they do try different things with different movies. Right. You know, like what I loved about the Captain America trilogy is that each movie is different.
Right, very different.
Very different.
But let's agree that Winter Soldier is so far still the best Marvel movie ever made. In my eyes. To me,
it might be the best one. Yeah,
it was my favorite one of all time. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm not even a Captain America fan that much.
No, yeah, of course not. But I was never a big Cap fan. I was more.
He was too sanctimonious to me.
The Ultimates came around. That first issue where it was set in World War II, and it was basically the first movie in one issue. Yeah. That for me was my. introduction to the badass Captain America, and thankfully the movies kind of
followed us, of course.
That.
It was the Punisher Max of the Avengers, right? Ultimates, because it did something very simple. Instead of trying to reinvent these characters, I feel what it did is it actually asked the question, what would you be like if you woke up, you were a World War II hero or whatever, and you woke up in the modern day New York? And not just the cool, like, oh, where can I buy some records? Like, not just that type of stuff. But your system of values would be completely different. He finds out that Wasp is getting smacked around. Right? What does he do? What 50s dudes used to do.
Exactly.
Grab your jacket, go over there, and kick the crap out of the bad husband.
That's
right?
exactly it.
And the absolute best line for me in the Ultimates, if you'll allow me to geek out here for a second, is a very simple panel. He's on the street corner with Wasp, who's taking him shopping for new clothes. And he's just looking inside of his bag. I think they just came out of the Gap or something. And he's like, $52 for a pair of slacks. That was my pay for the year. And then Wasp just turns to him and goes, you know, Steve, you really creep me out. You look like a male model, but you sound like my grandfather.
Exactly. And that was some of the best writing for Captain America that I've ever seen. You know,
I get this guy now.
While we did have that stuff in the old school comic books, that made him so human
immediately.
And you know, the movies did sort of a mishmash, and they do that. They do sort of a mishmash of different.
Like, he's a good guy, but he's not an idiot.
Exactly.
Right? He's not a fool.
Exactly.
You know, and like when he wakes up in the Shield base and the fake Shield base, and Nick Fury's talking to him, he's like, "Nice try, dude. The highest ranked black man in the army is a sergeant, and I grew up with him, and it ain't you. So try again, Hydra or whatever. Try again, Nazis."
It's awesome. It's awesome. So we're gonna just jump right to another thing that popped up this week, and another casting that I was just really confused about was, you heard about this Meryl Streep business?
Oh yeah,
with Princess Leia.
Yeah, I heard some whispers of this.
I don't know if it was. I think it was fans that actually were the ones that brought it up. And were trying to get signing. What's it called? Some
like they were trying to get like a.
You get tons of people to sign stuff.
Oh, like a petition going. We're now playing charades, everybody.
A petition. To get Meryl Streep to take over the role in the next movie. And
I just...
Why?
I think because the people that made those movies the way we wanted them are no longer in charge, I think. And
to be clear, I don't think Disney is really even considering it. I don't know. I hope not.
Well, did you ever think Laura Dern would show up with purple hair in the Star Wars film?
No, but
and ram her ship into the into Kylo Ren's vest. Like,
hey man,
it sounds like a joke.
It sounds like a joke, but when it happened, I was like,
you marked out. Cool. But it sounds like something Pat Oswalt would come up with on stage.
Exactly.
Right? So
possible. I mean, I suppose anything can happen, and I guess. With all these recastings for characters in the Solo movie, people are thinking, well, why don't we just recast?
Yeah, that's the smart move. Because Solo movie, when it was announced, I was like, that's it, Disney, that's it, Star Wars. You've pushed me too far. I am done with you. But it's like an abusive relationship. The minute they showed the Millennium Falcon, I was like, all right, here's my money.
Donald Glover looks so cool.
Immediately. I was like, take my money.
I saw a furry cape, and I'm just like, it's so totally what Lando Calrissian would have worn
as long as
a young man.
As long as it doesn't parallel too much with the Star Trek remake of like the troublesome Kirk kind of, breaking the law until he gets a ship. As long as
I think we'll definitely see stuff that we're going to have problems with. I think that's inevitable. I think everybody's going to have something to say about something. But,
happens,
I just hope they don't recast her. I think,
let her go.
Either let it go, or some people are saying is that they might kill her off screen before the movie. Like maybe this one takes place a few years later.
They need to get the old cast out
because I think people don't. I don't think people want to CG
no more
Leia.
No. They didn't want
maybe
her
maybe from a back view, I don't know what they're going to do.
They need to let go.
They need to let go.
They need to let go. Yeah.
Because I like the new kids. I think those.
And I mean, even if you
parts.
hate them, right? Even if you despise everything they stand for, which I don't. But even if you despise them, like they will never get a chance to become anything more if they're constantly in the shadow.
Exactly.
It's like you starting your own band.
Exactly.
And then your dad, who's a megastar, he's 70 now, but he keeps walking onto your stage in the middle of your set and sucking out all the air in the room. Yeah. Like at some point, they let the babies walk. Need to let them walk, and improve themselves, and find out if we actually love these characters and if we want to see more of them.
Yeah, that's a good point. Mm-hmm. And I know we talked about this a little earlier. This new Krypton show,
right? So you've watched it, right?
I've watched the first 2 episodes.
Okay. I can't tell what you're thinking. Are you concerned?
It's because I'm not. I just have not. I haven't found myself caring about it. Mm-hmm. I've watched it. It's about Kal-El's grandfather.
Okay. Who at this point was never been really a. This is basically like a. Let's use the Superman license without touching anything.
That's exactly what it feels like. It's so far back in the history that it doesn't really have too much to do with Superman at this point. You have Zod's.
Gotham, basically.
I think it's Zod's mother.
Okay.
I think that's the best. And she has a relationship with Seg, who's Kal-El's grandfather,
right.
And you see them getting hot and heavy and the whole deal. And so I guess that's going to be what the show's going to be about, the rift, what causes the family feud between the Zods and the L's.
But they have no powers, right?
Well, no, because
they're on their own planet, right? So again, I'm brought back to I don't know
the one part that sort of anyway. You were saying,
no, please.
The one part that sort of had me at one point was Adam Strange shows up.
Oh, okay.
And I thought he was Jimmy Olsen when I first saw him because he's this young dude with like a Boston Black Sox or Chicago Black Sox baseball cap. I don't know if that's the team. Don't get mad at me.
Your next guest is going to be a baseball fan.
Yeah, exactly.
So he's got like a hat that's from Earth.
He's a hat from Earth, and he's a time traveler, obviously. Right. And he comes back, and he's got Superman's cape with him.
Huh.
And he's there to basically save the past and make sure Superman exists because the cape is slowly like.
It's disappearing,
like Back to the Future style. Right. So that's the one thing that I sort of, I don't know why they didn't do Booster Gold. Maybe he's on another show.
I love Booster Gold. I just want to put this out there. I would do that movie in a heartbeat. I
don't know why this character is not Booster Gold because I love the character. I don't understand.
It's a perfect time for Booster Gold because it's the imposter story.
Yes.
And now more than ever, the world and media is full of imposters and pretend superheroes, pretend celebrities that do nothing. Booster Gold is a hero for this time.
And without a doubt, he would become right away DC's Ant-Man type criminal character.
And in a perfect world, Chris Pratt plays Booster Gold. Of course, right? Yeah. In the perfect world. But and the Blue Beetle team-ups and all that stuff. Anyway.
Yeah, no, there's so much to do. I don't know. And also, one last thing about Krypton.
Sure. I'm going to watch it, by the way.
The dude's British. So okay. I think it's done over there. And I guess that's sort of going back to, I don't know, Zod was British in the old Superman movies. So
right, Terrence Stamp.
So I guess maybe they're thinking that the old Krypton world.
Right.
Anyway, it's a lot to do with their religion, and it kind of has like a Maze Runner.
Yeah, that did seem to have
feel to it, and what's that other one? Divergent.
The 100.
The 100. It's very similar to that. So people are into that.
Yeah, the hairdos were very of that. Okay,
yeah. If people are into that, they're into that. Just don't expect Superman and Clark Kent and all those things because
you're not going to get like The Godfather, right?
No,
it's not The Godfather.
Yeah.
I was going to say when Krypton was announced and I saw the trailer again, I couldn't help think of one of my favorite comedy bit ever by Patton Oswalt, where he's making fun of the prequels.
Yeah.
About like taking a time machine,
right?
Finding George Lucas and killing him with a shovel,
right?
And then he goes into what that conversation would be like. It'd be like where he would go back to the year where Lucas was starting to think about doing the prequels, and he does his voice, and he's like, "Hey, you know Darth Vader? Oh yeah, of course, I love Darth Vader. Yeah. He's gonna be a kid in this show, and he's gonna do none of the things that you love him for."
Right.
And he's like, "Okay, what about Boba Fett? Oh, I fucking love I love Boba Fett. Great. Well, now he's going to be a kid, and he's going to be sad, and you're not going to see any of the things that you like Boba Fett about." And you're like, "Oh, but why? Why is this happening?" Right? So Krypton does kind of have this like, "Hey, what about Superman's grandfather?" Is a question I don't think any comic book fan has ever asked.
That's exactly it. And I think maybe if it was Jor-El, people would be into it.
Jor-El, I'd be in a second.
I think if it was that storyline and you see like little mini like Supergirl running around and I don't know.
And and you find out that Jor-El's past is not that clean.
Sure.
Right? You find out that he's maybe had some run-ins with some legacy villains from Superman's present. You know, maybe he was like, this is me just brainstorming. Now. Maybe he's involved in the Doomsday Project.
Exactly.
You know, maybe he has a run-in with Brainiac. You know, like all kinds. Maybe the reason he sends Kal-El to Earth is because he takes a trip himself and starts flying around and doing stuff, but covertly. You know.
There's so much they could do with Jor-El, you know. So I have no idea where they were going with that, but
I don't hate that the show exists.
If people love it, people love it. And also, they haven't introduced Brainiac yet, which I've seen him, and he looks amazing.
It looks too good, actually.
It looks like a video game or something. I wasn't really sure what I was. I sort of didn't make me want to believe that was what he was going to look like, because I don't know if you've seen Brainiac 5 on Supergirl. He just looks. He looks like those aliens from Star Trek.
Yeah, it's just terrible. But the Red Tornado was
Red Tornado was the worst.
Red Tornado basically made me watch Supergirl because of how bad. I was like, okay, I have no interest in this show, but they massacred this Red Tornado. I need to see it.
This show is, she is really cute.
Yeah. I love the show, by the way. You can skip through it and just get to the... I have a trick to watch Supergirl, okay? This is what you do. You put it on, and you put it on fast forward until it goes dark, right? So if it's daytime, you don't need to watch any of the daytime stuff. It's mostly going to be cheesy, romantic, like Felicity type
That's
stuff.
exactly what it is. Yeah.
And and if you're a girl and if you're into that, and then second that the lighting drops in the show, start watching, and then there's gonna be some action and some evil stuff happening.
Right.
And then when it comes back to like the Party of Five music, boom, you skip again.
Yeah.
Guaranteed you won't miss anything. And get only the good parts. Yeah.
Yeah, I should try that.
Yeah, I mean, it's great. You whiz through the first season in like 40 minutes.
That's awesome. And jumping now to the X-Men movies, which we've had a little issue this week with. They pushed back now.
Dark
Phoenix.
Again.
Yeah. Right. Well, they pushed New Mutants back even further.
Okay.
First, that was going to be this year as well, which I was sort of looking forward to, the New Mutants movie, because it had a horror theme to it.
Yeah.
And people
were kind of intrigued.
I was very intrigued with what they were going to do, and I love those characters. I was a huge New Mutants fan as a kid. Maybe it's because they were younger. I don't know.
But they were, I don't forget the artist who did them, but the artist who did New Mutants really...
I think Bob Layton was the first.
Was it Bob Layton?
I think it might have been.
Had a very peculiar style.
You had Sienkiewicz.
Right.
Sienkiewicz. I have no idea how to pronounce it. I'm sorry. He's a great artist, though.
Yeah.
I love him. He came along a little later and
really
blew the top off of the book and started doing stuff that we've never seen in comic books before.
Yeah, what was that, like, Nanite character, the one that's like...
Warlock.
Warlock, yes. That alone was ahead of its time. And
I've always wanted a Warlock t-shirt. I could never find one.
I still don't understand what that character is. And like...
Yeah, no, he was... Yeah, they were...
It would be amazing. You could do it
Phalanx.
Right.
He was a member of the Phalanx race, and they were sort of cybernetic.
And now you can do this character.
Now you can do this character.
95? No way. Now... it's the time for that character.
Actually, I don't know if you ever saw the... there was a YouTube music video these people did Dazzler music videos.
Okay.
And there was one with Dazzler, and you have her with Long Shot,
right.
and Leela Cheney, the rock star, she was in it. And then they did a second one with the New Mutants going to one of Leela Cheney's concerts, and they do sort of reference. They do another. I'll send you the links.
Okay.
They're amazing.
Sold. That and I'm going to watch Krypton.
And I don't know if you remember the old New Mutants annual where Cannonball gets involved with Leela Cheney.
Briefly. That's going back.
Right. She takes them to like this planet, and they fight aliens.
Oh, yeah.
It was a rock opera.
It was a rock opera, yeah. It's
and
true.
I think even that's on the cover. It's like it looks like an old album cover.
As a musical, that would be really cool.
And anyway, that showed me that the New Mutants could be done.
Yeah,
on screen, and
Absolutely.
they even had Warlock in that, because they're outside the concert, and it's the whole gang, and it's these young kids playing them, and it was just great stuff.
Yeah,
some of the fan films, as you know, just kick the films out of the licensed films.
For one very simple fact is that there's nothing between the fan and the product.
Yeah.
Right. And I feel bad, criticizing sometimes adaptations I disagree with.
Yeah.
Because there's so much, just politics. There's politics and politics and politics. So if you can get anything resembling the source material to the big screen on that level, I think you learn to even admire Marvel films even more. Yep, and the TV shows from Netflix, barring some. It's an accomplishment if you can bring anything resembling the comic book to the screen without it getting hacked to death by executives and people who think they know better but have never opened the comic book, right?
That's it, and
with fans, it's like from literally.
I think one of the things that suffers the most is that everybody takes off their masks. In like specifically even the Marvel movies. The Avengers. Like, you think the Avengers trailer, everybody's walking around without their mask on.
Right.
Even Spider-Man.
Well, I think
he's the one that would never take his mask off.
True. But, apart from for wanting to protect your loved ones, I think the masks, like maybe the Superman tights, underwear, is kind of maybe a relic of the past.
Maybe.
Because these characters were invented in a far more conservative time.
Yeah.
Where a guy in a spider suit, would be like the police would arrest him for indecency, right? Just for being in a leotard.
Yeah, it's true.
And crawling up the side of buildings, which is just not done. It's just not proper. Right? It's
not becoming of a young man.
Exactly. Yeah. Now, superhero culture is so ingrained in like even everyday people dressed like, wild. So I don't know. It's something that I don't necessarily hate, but I do like the alter ego stuff.
Yeah.
That's still intriguing.
I just, for me, Spider-Man is just, I remember even an issue where one of the Bendis New Avengers, where Spider-Man is in their kitchen, I don't know, grabbing cereal or something, and he's in his full Spider-Man, and Jessica Jones comes walking in, and she's, of course, the wife of Luke Cage that we've mentioned before, and she goes, "Hey, Peter, how you doing?" And he freaks out, like, "What? Huh? How you know who I am?"
Right.
And she's like, "We went to high school together. Like, I know your voice." Like,
that's cool.
and they actually go back to the point where one of the back characters in one of the early Spider-Man, they've just made that Jessica Jones.
Okay. That's cool.
Yeah, they go back and she's wearing, of course, like the poodle skirt and the whole, the 60s look, but they've decided that's going to be Jessica Jones within the...
Why not?
And I find that's kind of cool.
Yeah, that's fun.
That's I don't
cool
know.
Revisionism.
Why not put that humor in the movies?
Yeah, it hurts nobody. And that's a commandment, I think, that should be observed, not to sound overly religious. Because I'm not, but if you're going to change the story or change something fundamental to the character when adapting him or her to the screen, you better have an amazing reason to do it beyond this would be cool.
Yeah.
Right? If you're going to make Iron Man Chinese, make him Chinese, but there better be an amazing reason why he's Chinese.
Yeah.
If you're just doing it for novelty or for sales, then boo, you've lost my vote.
Yeah.
I'm not going to support that. But if you make Cable. I don't know what he's going to look like in Deadpool 2, but he looks pretty faithful.
Yeah.
But if you make him like a pervert, like I'll be like, okay, that's weird, but that sounds like fun.
Yeah.
Because Cable was a little bit of a tight ass in the comics.
Yeah.
A little bit no personality.
Yeah.
Stiff.
No, yeah. He was he was this like army general or something.
He was like from the hardest worlds, right?
Like a drill sergeant.
Exactly. So if you make him into a perv or like a weirdo, then I'm like, hey, you know what? Wasn't in the comics, but this is going to make things better.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
and we also found out this week that Phil Coulson, Agent Coulson, is going to be back in big screen in the Captain Marvel movie.
That's good news.
Which is going to be set in the 1990s, so they don't have to worry about him being dead or not dead anymore or whatever.
That's great news. He belongs in everything.
And apparently it's going to have a whole bunch of other people. Ronan the Accuser is going to be back.
Oh, he's back? Okay.
The Jaimin Hansu character. I can't remember.
Interesting.
So it's going to be Kree.
Oh, yeah, of course. Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I think Jude Law is playing Marvel.
Interesting. Okay.
So that movie, I hope, is going to be Marvel's sort of Wonder Woman.
Well, they have carte blanche. Okay, this is really the property most people don't know.
Yeah.
It's not a legacy iconic story, so they have kind of like Guardians. They can kind of explore.
My introduction to Carol Danvers was when she was not, and she was just like hanging out with the X-Men.
Exactly.
Like not.
There was nothing to her.
Jessica Drake too. The Spider-Woman.
Mm-hmm.
I saw first. I think my first interaction with that character was the Madripoor Patch Wolverine, where she was like a PI.
I forgot about that completely.
And then she started climbing up walls, and you're like, "Well, how could she do that?" And then I realized, and I found out later on that she was Spider-Woman
the whole time. Yeah,
and that was my first introduction to her.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll jump right out of Hot Topics.
Sure.
We're sort of going to go back to you.
All right.
And we'll talk about No Mercy a little bit more.
Okay.
What was your... obviously I've heard the stories, but what was your inspiration to do this?
Okay.
Why did you... How did this come about?
Okay, so let me give you the abridged version.
Yeah.
It's also the version I like the most.
Yeah.
Very simply put, I had just come out of film school.
Right.
And to be clear, I studied film production rather than film studies.
Okay.
So I was really in the production mode. But because I went to a very good film school, a lot of, if not everything that was being produced there was art film.
Right.
Because that's just the vibe in film school, right? Experimental film, dramas, everyone's talking about mortality or birth, that stuff. Being that it was also full of French kids, even though it was an English school, that meant that there was a lot of, on the curriculum that was French, Nouvelle Vague, like a lot of foreign film, very artsy, and in its own way can be great. Because it's like, here's a candelabra, or here's a pile of coins and a candle in a room, make a story. So while I was totally immersed in that, I was the one guy, pretty much, at the film school, I was like, I'm going to make a science fiction film about an astronaut. Mm-hmm. Right? My film was almost considered like goofy in terms of theme compared to everyone else that was, setting their films in old age homes and experimental films about the old man in the mountain and stuff, like doing all this deep emotional stuff.
It shocks me because you'd think by now that stuff would be a given. Most people that are going to film school or have been watching movies since they were a kid, watching Star Wars and Back to the Future.
Oh no, the geek was like not allowed, or there was no one forbade you from going there. But if you engage in any sort of geek type, like comic book stuff, like you got laughed at or pashad or kind of like poo-pooed, right? It was It was looked down upon. The fact that I was even in a fiction film was they called us the pornographers because we were making films with actual 3 acts and we were doing things that were potentially mainstream. And if you brought up anything that was comic booky or stuff like that, it was really not it was not the place to do that, and I was disappointed in that. But at the same time, that wasn't my goal. But to make this short, like I came out of a 3-year intensive program, and I was all art filmed out. The was like I couldn't take it anymore. I was just like, I'm just gonna make a film. I joked to somebody with somebody shooting an Uzi for an hour,
right?
And just to get some of this frustration out, you know. And out of nowhere on Facebook, I see, I don't know, somehow I came across Sean Baichu's page,
right?
And I see that he's done this photo shoot of himself as Punisher, and I'm like, here's a guy who physically doesn't look like any iteration of Punisher that's ever existed,
right?
But the photographs were great, by the way, first of all. But he chose to do it in like he was beat up already, like in the photos, right? Yeah. He was like, he had bandages on,
right,
and he looked like he had been punishing that day. Which there's a trillion people taking Punisher pictures of themselves and cosplaying him, but he's always squeaky clean,
right?
Or he's wearing the original black and white suit or whatever,
right?
And it's for fun. But here was this guy that was like, I was like, whoa! And then underneath there was this stuff about like working on a fan film, looking for an art director. And I'm like, I don't even know what this is. I don't know any of the people involved. This Sean guy seems like he's on the level.
Wow.
Let me just hit up this guy and tell. I can do art direction in my sleep. It's not a problem.
Right.
Comic books, I don't. But at this point, I was a Punisher fan.
Right.
But I wasn't like specifically obsessed with Punisher.
Right.
I had, however, just finished reading the Max series.
Right.
And that had made a huge impression upon me. Right. So that ended up in us sitting down for a coffee, and in that 1 hour conversation, I proposed to him.
Right.
In that 1 hour conversation.
Sean's like that.
Right.
You meet him, and immediately you're like, wow, this guy is like my best friend right now.
If he's excited about something, you will be excited by that by the end of the conversation.
Right.
He will get you there.
Yeah.
And we also really connected on certain levels of... We understood each other. Yeah. We had exactly the same things to say about Punisher film adaptations.
Right.
And by the end of that conversation, I said, dude, I want to direct this film. We'll find an art director. Let me direct this film.
Yeah.
And he just looked at me. He's like, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and I didn't feel like it was sure, I need someone to do that anyway. Yeah. I felt like he was like, this was meant to be.
Right.
From there on, I met his crew, which was really weird because they were all of his friends. And out of nowhere comes this guy he's only met. And I start not barking orders, but I'm like, okay, guys, here's how this is going to go down.
Right.
And I made a bunch of tweaks. I suggested some stuff that actually led to some people being not pushed out, but like let go of.
Okay.
Which I was shocked by because I was like, listen, Sean, and I'm not going to name any names, obviously, but I'm like, here, this and this aspect of this production as it is now, as I found it, I feel could be done. We could go further with this.
Right.
And Sean just looked at me and he said, well, if I need to say goodbye to some friends over this, I mean, I'm going to do it as softly as I can because I love those people.
Right.
But if it's going to make a better film, if you tell me I need to leave this project, I'll leave this project. Wow. Like, that's how committed he was.
Okay.
And then we sat down with Dav, de Villa LeBlanc, who co-wrote the story. In a bar, we went over the script. I made some suggestions. I essentially just like pinched here and tweaked there, and then we just brought together this family, and then did this crazy 63-hour marathon weekend shoot.
Wow!
From hell, that cost us $5,000 to make, and we made back on a Kickstarter on an Indiegogo campaign after the fact, and it was a huge success. It was essentially a no-budget film because it was all art. Yeah. But there was quality to it.
You could see that when you watch it. You could see that it was made by fans for sure.
Yeah.
You know, and especially not just Punisher fans, but you guys, by not, making a big deal about Elektra showing up.
Right.
And making it sort of like the Marvel Shared Universe thing. Which is something we've never even seen Punisher in the TV show.
Right.
Really. I mean, you've seen him in the Daredevil stuff, but, I wasn't prepared at that point because you guys came out before the Daredevil series.
Yes.
So I had no idea I was going to see Punisher and Elektra.
I was writing a Daredevil fan film, and an Iron Fist fan film when they announced the shows.
Wow!
And then I rewrote. I had a sequel to No Mercy, which involved Russian gangsters, and then Daredevil comes out, and it's Russian gangsters. So I'm like, damn it! I go back to the drawing board. I retool it as a Yakuza Triad thing. Yakuza Triad shows up in the second season, and it's the Shadowland, right? So there's all kinds of funny coincidences with that. And then I can put down the pen for Iron Fist because then they announced Iron Fist, and I'm like, okay, I don't need to do this now. They're gonna do right. Oh no,
you still need to do it.
They tore my freaking head. I still have the notes. Notes.
Yeah. So you were thinking of doing a sequel?
Yes, I have an idea for. I have a couple ideas actually for Iron Fist fan film. I don't know if we can do it now because we got away with Punisher No Mercy. The reason why a lot of people were not on board is because Sean doesn't look like the traditional Frank Castle and couldn't see beyond that. But it ended up being our saving grace because there were a couple of Punisher fan films, one in particular, that had major backing. And sign off from several Punisher artists and writers.
Wow.
The Dead Can't Be, what's it called? The Dead Can't Be Disturbed or something like that.
Okay.
It was made by these two super well-regarded music video guys that had done a bunch of metal band videos.
Okay.
It was going to be a huge fan film. And this guy was basically petitioning for, this is pre-Netflix now. Was petitioning Marvel to kind of let him take the license in a new direction, and this was his calling card, but they got shut down hard, cease and desisted, while we finished No Mercy. And the fact that Sean didn't look like Frank Castle and that we did an original story is what saved our asses. So
this other film was like more of an adaptation.
It was literally, I think it was lifted off the page of, I forget the name of that run, but it's where Punisher has like a beard and he's got a patched up eye.
Yes. Okay, I can't remember exactly. I can't remember exactly what it's called, but I do know what you're talking about. It's a younger
Punisher. He's now like a Desert Storm veteran rather than a Vietnam veteran.
Right.
But yeah, that's essentially how that movie happened.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's crazy. So what would be your? Obviously, you mentioned you're a huge Iron Fist.
Massive.
Was that the first character that you sort of really gravitated towards?
As a kid, I liked Spider-Man, but I was annoyed by the fact that he would constantly was stuck in this loop with the great power comes great responsibility. And then I think I started to detach as a teenager from Spider-Man when Venom came along.
Okay.
And especially when second phase Venom came along, where Venom was at this point had exhausted some of his hate for Peter Parker and was just sort of like, you're a fool. You're a fool, Parker. These villains are just going to keep coming back at you, and you just let them go. It was during the Maximum Carnage series, where Venom's like, listen, we can work together, but eventually I'm going to have to finish this job because you're a wimp.
Yeah.
You won't do what's necessary. And it's the same stuff I loved about Punisher, telling Daredevil, like, you don't have, you're a half measure.
Yeah.
And Iron Fist landed in my lap. I don't know how, but I'm forever in love with that character for the simple fact that he's another character that was never written very well and who was never super popular and was kind of part of a blaxploitation kind of flavor of the week comic book in the 70s, right? To like get the kids on board and to, to have something for people in the hood to read. Kind of was the idea, right?
Yeah. My exposure to him was Power Man and Iron Fist.
Right.
That series. Yeah. And, and he was always sort of like the comedy relief to Luke Cage, who was kind of full of himself and wanted to make money at being a superhero.
Right.
Which, that's something we haven't seen in the show yet.
Right.
But, they weren't really portrayed as like the classic superheroes that are, going out there and, just doing what they're doing because it's right.
Right. Well,
they were making a business out of it.
I would like to make a correction, and not a correction, but maybe challenge you on one thing.
Yeah.
Is the comedy relief Iron Fist is a newer creation. Because originally, he wasn't goofy. And I hate the fact that he became goofy.
Okay.
I'm not saying I hated necessarily what they did with him in Ultimate Spider-Man, where he's kind of like a surfer dude. That was cool for the kids.
Yeah.
But the original Iron Fist was a fish out of water, but he wasn't goofy.
Okay.
He was actually just really he was just really lost because he had spent that decade in Kunlun.
Okay.
And so he didn't quite, he wanted to just, he was upset, he was caught between two worlds.
Okay.
Whereas Luke's whole problem was he kept losing his shirt, literally.
Yeah.
And you're like, sweet Christmas, I gotta buy a new shirt again.
Yeah.
I can't get my money straight.
Yeah. And they always had these girls around, and the Daughters of the Dragon,
Daughters of the Dragon, there's all these martial arts clubs.
Right.
And then when Davos came along, like, to me, that was such a moment. The Steel Serpent, like, that to me is the crux of the story.
Yeah.
In the TV show, I don't even want to talk about what they did there.
Yeah.
The only hilarious thing about that, by the way, is the guy that they cast as Davos looks like Sean Bachu.
Yes.
And I had the short film I wanted to do with Iron Fist. He was going to play Davos.
Wow.
Because he looks like what I picture Davos looking like. He's actually clean shaven.
Yeah.
Asiatic, but of no particular Asian nation because Kunlun, right?
Right.
But their clash is such a powerful moment if it's handled correctly.
Yeah. I would like to see Kunlun though in live action. I hope they get around to it.
So like showing us what it looks like?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Kunlun is only, it depends. If you're going to do Kunlun, then it needs to be full departure, the way that Fantastic Four take off into space and other dimensions.
Yeah.
And then you stay there for a while and you finish that story.
Yeah.
But you can't hop between New York and Kunlun.
No. Yeah.
Because that's confusing.
Yeah. It would have to be like half the season or something.
Yeah, you can do the storyline with the Holy Cities where you find out that there are other Kunluns, other Holy Cities.
Yeah.
And they all produce a champion.
Yeah.
And it all culminates in the tournament, which is perfectly fine.
Yeah.
But that's like its own season.
Yeah.
You don't have him like, okay, let me go back to my New York like pad now. And be a corporate, heir or whatever. Yeah. So yeah. Maybe I'll get around to it.
I know you're really, really critical of the Netflix shows.
Yeah.
And especially Iron Fist.
Yeah. It was a travesty.
What would you have done different?
Everything.
Absolutely everything.
Absolutely everything. And I don't say that brazenly like a know-it-all fan.
Yeah.
I try to always find, especially because I've learned filmmaking, I try not to judge. I always play this game whenever a film I see that I don't like.
Mm-hmm.
The exercise I do is not how would you have done it,
mm-hmm.
but how would you have done it given the exact same tools, right? So you can't increase budget. You can't change the actors. You can't change the main plot. How would you have executed this differently? But the Netflix Iron Fist to me was every single thing about it was off.
Right.
Nothing. They didn't even, not even the chest tattoo was right.
Yeah.
Everything about it was wrong.
He was really thin.
He just. I know he got handed a raw deal. I heard that.
Yeah.
Finn Jones.
Finn Jones.
Yeah. He got handed a raw deal. He had to kind of like jump into this role without any proper preparation.
Okay.
He had to very quickly. He didn't get the training that he...
So it was like from Game of Thrones right to this?
Yeah, like very quickly he got thrown in there. And, I mean, he was surrounded by the team that did, I think, The Matrix for martial arts, for the choreographies. There was an expert team there.
They were like the best in the business.
The best in the business, right? And somehow it ended up being completely bland and forgettable. I don't think anybody really understood what they were doing with the show, except that they wanted to include him because it worked with the Defenders setup, but everything was wrong.
I just don't understand why they didn't introduce him maybe in Luke Cage or one of the, and like they did with Luke Cage and Jessica Jones.
Correct.
And sort of just continued that.
Yeah.
And sort of established that relationship, because maybe that would have made it a little more, because I did see glimpses of them possibly working better together in the Defenders.
There was hints at it, but by then the Danny Rand of Netflix was made so unlikable.
Yeah.
And in Defenders, they had the time to adjust these things because the Netflix show, one of the biggest things that they screamed about was how unlikable he is.
Yeah.
And then they doubled down on his shittiness in the Defenders.
Yeah.
And by that point, it was unforgivable by this point. But I feel like this is something we should revisit. If you come on to Fire No Hole,
right,
or I come and see you, we can get into the meat of this if you want.
Yeah, for sure.
And I don't mean to sound like I know what I would do, but the fact of the matter is, it was kind of dead on arrival to me. They chose a very decent actor, but that had no physical presence whatsoever. And in this particular case, that's like having a skinny Rambo, right? Or I can't find a better example right now, but that's like casting Steve Buscemi as Drax the Destroyer, right? That's just an extreme.
That's a crazy comparison.
I want to see that now, but
I want to see that now. Exactly. I want to see. I want to see him in a Marvel movie anywhere. Okay. Well, there's a lot going on.
Yeah, I know. We have a lot of things that we want to talk about.
Yeah, there's so much.
Time flies.
But I mean, we're going to talk a little bit, just real quick, about your stand-up stuff.
Okay.
What made you want to get involved with that?
All right. So,
that? Obviously we talked about it earlier, but
my friend who manipulated me into it. Yeah. No, I mean, I've loved comedy, of course, my whole life. I think if you talk to the people that know me, they'll tell you that I've always talked in a comedic way.
Yeah, I mean, you're one of the funniest guys I know.
Oh, thank you. But I mean, that just comes from the fact that I had no brothers or sisters. We moved around a lot when I was a kid.
Right.
So joking around became my way to make friends fast.
Right.
And to not be alone.
Right.
But it's also the way my brain brain goes there.
Okay.
My brain goes there, and I love storytelling and filmmaking. Comedy, I think, is like what made me turn to it. Really, is that filmmaking is unfortunately one of those art forms that you can't really satisfy enough.
Right.
Right. If you're a musician, even if you play in a band, if you get the itch, you go pick up your guitar and disappear for 6 hours in your room, and you rock out. If you want to paint. Vanessa paints and draws really, and she can jam on her Wacom tablet and exercise those demons, if you will. Yeah. But I need to call 30 people and get $5,000 if I want to jam.
Yeah.
So I was constantly in this sort of frustration where I was like, I didn't get that instant gratification. I didn't have an outlet.
Right.
And then it just came together. And then if you spend any time with me, I just constantly make stupid observations of things.
Yeah, for sure.
And finally someone said to me, my best friend, Richard, shout out, said, hey, just get up there, man, and do some of that stuff that you do. Yeah. And that's what it's been.
I've been to a few shows, and it's really entertaining. You're really entertaining. And a few of the nights that I've gone, you were, maybe I'm biased, but you're one of the funniest guys up there.
Oh, thank you. That's very nice of you. Yeah, I take it seriously. I'll put.
No, I can see that.
Whether you like my comedy or not, or jokes or not, I think one criticism I would have trouble accepting, is that I don't respect the format because I have a tremendous amount of reverence for comedy. Yeah. So if I go up there, whether I get it right or not is not even important. But I do my homework. Okay. Like I work at it. I don't just go up in there and be like, I'm funny.
I've seen that.
I'm just going to scratch my ass.
I've been to a few of the amateur nights that you've been up, and some people go up there and they're just not prepared at all.
Or they're winning.
And you do seem prepared and kind of polished a little more.
Yeah. Thanks, man. Thanks.
And you don't necessarily always throw in the geeky stuff. You now and then you do, but you sort of.
I flirt with it, but the thing about it is that stuff is ready to go.
Yeah.
So. Just like anything racial, I'm biracial, I'm Hungarian, I'm Egyptian. It's a weird mix.
Yeah.
I use it now.
Yeah.
But initially, I didn't want to go there.
Right.
Because I didn't want to be one more brown guy talking about being brown.
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah. I was like, no. What if I just do comedy? And it just happens to be that I'm a mixed race. But then I realized, hey, this is just too funny.
It's too funny.
Let's just it work, and people love it.
Yeah.
So geek stuff. I've got more. I've got a lot of it. It's going to be a time release thing.
Good. Yeah, I'm kind of wondering why don't they have like whole shows?
Well, they do a little bit of the BattleCom, right? Stuff
Okay.
like the Comic-Con.
Okay.
Paul Ash has that show where it's more geek oriented.
Okay.
But it's now I think is the best time for a little geek humor because it's in the mainstream.
Yeah.
People get a Captain America
Joke.
Winter Soldier homoerotic joke now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's something that we don't, I find also there's comedy in comic books now.
Oh, there's always
comedy in the movies. I mean, we literally had a comedic Thor movie. Like, that was a comedy for me.
I was expecting at any moment for them to break into song. Like that's how much of a comedy it was.
Yeah, and I enjoyed it.
Ragnarok? Super fun.
I just watched it for the second time the other day, and it didn't lose its humor.
It was absolutely fantastic. I felt that it maybe compromised Hulk and Thor a little bit in terms of seriousness, but they weren't doing anything more interesting in the other Thor films.
That's exactly it.
Right?
And I find what they tried something different.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I give Marvel, we're not going to get the same movie twice.
Right.
It's rare anyway. I mean,
and hats off to them. I love, and before we wrap up, I want to say, congratulations on the show, man.
Thank you.
I want to see a bazillion episodes.
I hope I get there.
And I want to see this. I think, and Richard's going to agree with me, I want to see your podcast be bigger than our podcast.
Oh, man.
Because
I'm not going to say that, but I really hope that it's the beginning of something fun. I think so.
I need you to become you need to represent Montreal and become the ambassador, like the podcast ambassador to geekdom. And I think the path for you is clear. I think you can go. Wow. I think you could be our Kevin Smith. You could be our dude.
Whoa, okay.
Yeah, because you definitely have the niceness. I'm not just blowing smoke here.
Okay.
You care enough about the stuff. And congratulations, man. And I'm going to listen to every episode of the show.
I appreciate that, man. Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for coming on.
My pleasure, man.
It was a blast.
Anytime.
We might have to do a second one because
anyone cancel.
I still have a bunch of stuff here to talk about, and you're sort of knowledgeable, and we could.
Oh, thank you. I'll be your Brian Red Band. Like whenever your high profile guests cancel, you just like Jay.
So when Robert Downey Jr. cancels on my show, you're going to be the guy.
Yeah, and it'll be an honor to be the guy filling in for the huge star that couldn't make it.
For sure,
amazing. All right, man.
All right, man. Thanks a lot.
Always a pleasure.
Good times.
All right.